Good Wednesday afternoon, and welcome to another edition of our Wednesday Link Up to Lift Up. My name is Tommy Fleming. I'm sitting by the pool. No, not really. This is just a virtual background. But we're here today um, inside of this beautiful Wednesday afternoon as we continue our observation of Lent. Today is Holy Wednesday, and I pray that today finds you in the best of health and spirits. Beautiful, sun-filled day. Temperature is expected to get up to about 88 degrees today. So if you're going to be out and about, do a couple of things for me. First off, if you need allergy medication, take it before you go outside. Trust me, you'll be better off for it and you'll be happier for it. Not only that, but also if you're going to be um, out exerting yourself, please be sure, make double sure that you take care of your drinking, your hydration, that you keep yourself completely hydrated during the course of the weather on the outside. It's very important that we continue to take care of ourselves. Hey, Frida Dixon, thanks for joining in today, and to everyone else as you guys sign in. Again, one of the things that we've been doing during this season of Lent is that we have been sharing a Lenten devotional. That Lenten devotional came from New Brunswick Theological Seminary. And we want to firstly thank them for providing that great tool for us during the course of this Lenten season. Dr. Micah McQuarrie, the Reverend Dr. Micah McQuarrie, is the president of New Brunswick Theological Seminary. And so again, we thank him. Hey, Crystal. Um, and so today's devotional was an interesting devotional for me. It was rooted in Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 through 3. And with your indulgence, I want to read just a few verses to you today. Again, it is Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 through 3. And it says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. One of the best things about Hebrews is the whole discourse on faith and what that faith means in terms of our ability to run out this race that God has outlined for us. Hey, Sister Evelyn, the most important thing about that declaration from Paul is the presence and the application of our faith. Now, the one thing about Hebrews, especially this 12th chapter here, is it begins with the phrase therefore. And I always like to say, if you see therefore starting off a chapter, you need to go back and take a look at the chapter before, because there was a conclusion made in the chapter before, and you need to be able to sort of catch up to where Paul is. Paul points out during chapter 11 these heroes of faith. He talks about Abel, who by faith was able to bring a better offering to God than Cain. He talks about the fact that Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed, and he went, and God attributed it to him as righteousness. He goes on, he talks about Jacob, Joseph, Moses' parents, Moses himself, and there are all these heroes of the Bible. And I love, and within the course, this discourse of providing us with all these heroes of the Bible, he says in verse 32, he says, and I do not have time to tell you about Gideon, Barak, Samson, and Jephthah, about David and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, and gained what was promised, who shut the mouths of lions, quenched the fury of the flames, and escaped the edge of the sword, whose weaknesses were turned to strength, and who became powerful in battle and routed foreign armies. Women received back their dead, raised to life again. There were others who were tortured and refusing to be released so that they might gain an even better resurrection. In essence, what Paul tells us is that these heroes of the faith are not the end all and be all of the heroes of faith. That there are some folk who will never be named within the Bible. There are some folk whose name we will never know, whose story we may never know, but they're also considered heroes of faith. And I want you to know today that as you write your story, and that's what we're doing here, the songwriter said, may the life I live speak for me, irrespective of what you want. It will speak for you. And so even your life of faith has the opportunity to speak for you. And so when Paul begins this verse, he says, therefore, he says, remember all those heroes of faith I told you about. They're watching you. And I want you to take note today of the fact that Paul uses the imagery of a runner in a race when he talks about these heroes of faith and what we're called to do as we're being witnessed by those heroes of faith. Now, he's not talking about someone who is running to gain physical exercise, not running just because they're late for something, not running because they don't want to get their clothes or their hair wet in the rain, but they're running because they want to win the race, not just participate, not just to get that T-shirt that is offered up for participation, but they are looking to win the race. And they don't just want to be declared a winner at the end, just to have their hand raised in victory, but they are running for the prize that is offered at the end of the race. And Paul gives us some much needed advice on how we ought to run this race. I'm a firm believer that if you're going to run a race and if you intend to win the prize, you got to run the race like you mean it. And so Paul gives us some needed advice as we look into these verses. And I want to have you listen to me closely today. We don't have a lot of time for these Wednesday link up to lift up. So I want to outline this advice for you. Paul, first off, tells us that there are witnesses who are checking out your run. Now, understand this. Paul isn't telling us that we're running the race to appeal to those who are watching us on the sideline. You know, too often in our Christian journey, we get sometimes ensconced or entrapped in this effort to please those around us who are watching us as we make our walk. What Paul is telling us is that these witnesses who are checking out your run, who are watching you run this race. Now understand this. Paul isn't telling us that we're running that race to appeal to them. That's not what he is saying. What he is saying is that the folks who have done this thing, the folks who have run this race, who have gotten into the race running hall of fame, the faith hero hall of fame, all are witnesses to what you're doing. And they're not just watching you, but they're cheering you on. I need somebody to hear that today. You have family members who are not listed in the Bible, but I guarantee you who would qualify as heroes of faith. Grandma was a hero of faith. Grandpa was a hero of faith. Your friends around you are heroes of faith. It is imperative that you understand the importance of having people not only around you physically, but people spiritually who are watching you run this race, who are witnesses to this race that you're running, and who are doing their very best to encourage you as you run on. They're cheering you on. And somebody needed to know that today. I know that you've been struggling in your race. And I know you feel sometimes that what you're doing is not being marked, that it is not even being noticed by those around you. But you need to know today that this great cloud of witnesses that we're talking about are not just watching you run. They're not judging your run, but they're encouraging you to run on just a little bit further to ensure that you achieve the prize that is there at the end. Now, understand this about this run. Here's the important thing. Unlike other races we involve ourselves in, unlike other competitions in life, the only competition in this race is me. That I am running this race against myself, that I am running this race against the carnal nature that resides within me. I am running this race against the weight and sin that doth so easily beset me. That is who I'm running the race again. I'm not running the race against my next door neighbor. I'm not running the race against my spouse. I'm not running the race against my children, but I am running this race so that I might receive the prize that's at the end. And because I'm not competing against anyone else, the race is not given to the strong. The race is not given to the swift. The race isn't given to the one that finishes first, but the race goes to the one who finishes. And that's what you need to understand today. And the way we can finish this race, Paul tells us, is that we run with perseverance. That word perseverance means to just continue to press on, that you're not pushed back, that you're not thrown back by the things that come up against you, but you have your eyes set on the prize. He tells us in that second verse, he says, fixing our eyes on Jesus, who is the author and finisher of our faith, my friends. Very easy, especially in this Christian journey. We can get distracted by the things that are taking place around us. We can get distracted by the politics of the day. We can get distracted by the horrors of the weather conditions. We can get distracted by man's inhumanity to man. There are so many things within this Christian journey that can distract us. And when Paul talks about distractions, what he's talking about is something that not just catches your eye. And remember, if it's catching your eye, it's taking your eye off of Jesus. But he's talking about those things that cause us to stop running for a second. He's talking about those things that causes us to falter in our race, to stumble as we run along. And the thing we have to understand is that if we keep our eyes fixed on Jesus, who is the author and finisher of our faith. What that means is Jesus writes out our faith and then he perfects our faith. That if we fix our eyes on him, that we'll be able to overcome. Well, first off, we can throw off the things that hinder us in our run. We can throw off the sin that so doth easily beset us, as the King James Version says. And then when we're able to do that, we're able to run with perseverance the race that has been marked out for us. As we put a wrap, or as we come to the close of 2023's Lenten observation, I pray that during the course of these past, these past 6 weeks, that you've had an opportunity to draw yourself closer to God. I pray that you've had an opportunity to do some reflection, because one of the most important things about the Lenten season is that opportunity that God presents us for reflecting, repentance, and returning to him. I don't know, maybe during the course of this race, you've gotten sidetracked, you've gotten distracted, you've focused more on the physical witnesses that are around you. You're focusing, or you've been focused on the scorn that has been thrown your way, on the challenges that have come your way, the physical difficulties you've had in running out this race, the emotional issues that have developed in your life as a result of having to try and run out this race and to live the life that God has planned for you. I want to tell you today, my friends, that Jesus runs right with you. That even as the author and finisher of your faith, Jesus is engaged in the run right there with you. I don't know if you've ever done long distance running, man, but I never could, because my mind gets to floating, my mind gets to thinking, and I don't like running by myself. But I want you to know today, my friends, that when you run this race, that when you put your feet on this track, that God is right there with you in the form of his son Jesus, that he is a very present help in the time of your trouble. And not only does he run with you, but when you begin to stumble, he catches your elbow and he gets you to the next bit of your race. And even when you feel like you can't go on any further, that he will empower you, that he will strengthen you, that he will give you just what you need so that you can run on a little bit further. Don't worry about who else is running. Your race is against yourself. Your race is against the sin and the distractions that doth so easily beset us. So you be sure that you are faithful in your run, that you are faithful in your journey. Yes, Crystal, you are absolutely right. That is the cry that each of us needs to have. Help me, Jesus, to keep on running. Help me, Jesus, so that I don't just stop right in the middle of my tracks. Help me, Jesus, not that I can run this race with the quickest of them, but that I might run this race until the end. And that's the important thing to remember, because at the end, Paul tells us in these verses that we've been reviewing, he says, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross. And him being Jesus, of course, he scorned its shame. And because he endured the cross, because he scorned the shame of the cross, he is now set down at the right hand of the throne of God. And he endured opposition from sinners. And then once we consider the fact that Jesus endured the cross, scorned its shame, and is now seated at the right hand of the throne of God, it provides us with the impetus we need to run on just a little bit further and not grow weary in this race and lose heart. I pray, my friends, that this day continues to be a blessing to you. You know, you need to be aware of the fact that some of us are going through things that we will never share with someone else. Some of us are very private about the affairs that go on in our life. And so sometimes it's important that we as prayer warriors, that we begin to sense what's going on in the life of those around us. God will let you know. God will let you know that you need to be praying for someone today. When you wake up sometimes in the morning and there's a feeling of unease, that unease exists because there's something God needs you to do. There's something God needs you to do. And so be on the lookout. There are friends and other church members, co-workers, neighbors. It runs the gamut that they're going through in this season. And even as you're running your race does not allow you to ignore the race of others. That if you can offer up a word of encouragement, please, it is your responsibility. Because we all, God didn't save us just so that we could finish the race by ourselves, but God saved us that we might help others finish this race as well. So I want you all to, I leave this admonishment in every email I send. I said, take care. And you have to take care of yourself. You need to make sure that you attend to your needs. You need to make sure that you're engaged in the effort to ensure that the things you need that you're getting. You need to take care, but also do good. That we can't just be in this world and be neutral. And we can't be in this world participating in bad things. And so what we have to do is do good whenever it presents itself, whenever the opportunity presents itself, and then be blessed. And that doesn't require any effort on your part. All you have to do is just revel in the blessings that God will provide you. I love you. And as my uncle used to say, there ain't a thing you can do about it. You take care, do good, and be blessed.